Hello, boys and girls. Today we are going to read a book called Goose Girl, and it's written by Joe McClellan and Matrine McClellan, and illustrated by Rianne Brynjolfsson. Here we go. Goose Girl. I love the illustrations. Many years ago, by a lake in northern Canada, there lived a girl named Marie. She spoke French and she spoke Cree. Every evening in the fall, Marie walked to the lake to watch the geese land. Look at the beautiful illustrations. Here we go. Marie loved the geese. She loved them with her whole heart. Marie thought that geese were the most beautiful creatures in the whole world. They were her family. They were her friends. They were her babies. There were hunters at the lake too. Every time that Marie heard their guns roar and saw a beautiful goose fall dead from the sky, her whole body would shudder and she would cry. Marie didn't hate the hunters. Her father and brothers were hunters. Marie knew that they had to hunt geese for their family to survive. On evenings, when they had goose for supper, Marie would sit in another part of the house and her mother would bring her something else to eat. Her mother understood. Marie loved the fall, the way that night came so quickly, bringing with it a chill that turned her breath into a cold mist that would rise to the moon. She loved the rustle that her feet made as she walked through the fallen leaves on her way to the lake. When she looked up into the sky, she would see a small black dot that would move closer until it exploded into an uneven V of flying singing geese, who would circle down and land on her lake for the night. Marie could only count to 100, but she was sure that thousands of geese landed on her lake every night. And here are the geese here. One evening, while she was watching her geese, Marie felt her mother walk up behind her. They stood silently and watched the geese until her mother softly rested her hand on Marie's shoulder and whispered into her ear, "Nidanis, my daughter, when we die, these geese take our spirits south, into the sky, to our promised land." "That's what I was thinking, ma mère, my mother," said Marie as she reached up to take her mother's hand. They walked home silently in the moonlight, listening to the geese singing on the lake. One night, right after her 10th birthday, Marie heard a noise behind her as she walked home from the lake. When she got to her house, she turned and saw that a particular goose had followed her home. They looked into each other's eyes for the longest time until Marie turned and entered her house, and the goose flew back to the lake. After that, the same goose followed her home every night, and every night they stood and looked into each other's eyes. Her dad and her brothers loved to tease Marie, but even they knew not to tease her about the goose that followed her home. After Marie had said her prayers and gone to bed one night, her mother came and sat on the edge of her bed. She brushed the hair back from Marie's eyes, the way mothers always do, and said, "Mishum, grandfather, has told us to call you Niska for now. If you like that name, we will have a feast for it, and it will be yours forever." Marie lay silently for minutes, then sat up and hugged her mother tightly. "I love it, ma mère, my mother. I just love it." Over and over, as she fell to sleep that night, Marie whispered, "Niska, Niska, Niska, Niska," the Cree word for goose. 2 weeks later, everyone went to Mishum's house after Mass. Mishum, which is her grandfather, had set out a feast on a blanket in the yard. They had buffalo, venison, moose, whitefish, pickerel, onions, potatoes, carrots, bannock, berries, pies, and tea. Oh, that is a feast. Before they could eat, one of Marie's brothers took a little of each food and placed it on a small plate. He placed a small offering of tobacco on the plate too, and asked Mishum to pray over it and bless the food. When they had finished eating, Mishum called Marie to him. Astum, Marie, astum. Come, Marie, come. There's Mishum, right here. He took her hands in his, the way grandfathers often do, and looked deeply into her eyes. From now on, he said to her, we will call you Niska. The goose that follows you home has shown us this name. It is your spirit name that your family will know, and you will tell to those that you love. You will still be Marie, but Niska makes you more than Marie. It makes you able to bring the teachings and the healings of the geese to our people. Come with me, granddaughter. We see a birch tree there. They took the plate with the blessed food and walked to the cemetery. Sit here, Niska. This is my father's grave. Mishum fed Niska from the plate that they had brought. Eat this, Mishum said, for your ancestors. The geese have taken their spirits to the promised land. You will do their work now, and the work of the geese. This is how you will help our people. Mishum took the tobacco from the plate and put Niska's hand on his. Together they placed the tobacco on the grave as an offering to their ancestors. There they are there. It was still dark the next morning when she heard Mishum calling her. Hurry, Niska, before the light. Let's go. We must get to the lake before daybreak. Niska threw on her dress over her nightclothes and ran outside. She took Mishum's hand and they hurried to the lake as fast as an old woman and a young girl could go. When they reached the shore, Mishum took a handful of tobacco from his pouch and gave it to her. Put this on the water, Niska, as an offering to your brothers and sisters, the geese. She did this carefully, and immediately the geese began to fly off toward the south. She watched them go, one at a time, for over an hour. Finally, one last goose, her goose, swam directly in front of Niska. She and the goose looked into each other's eyes for a long, long time, until the goose turned and flew off to join the others. Niska turned and saw all of her relatives standing on the shore next to Mishum. Each one of them came to her in turn, shook her hand, hugged her, kissed her on her cheek, and whispered, Niska, her new name, into her ear. Even her brothers did so. From that day on, Niska dreamed of geese every night. In the morning, after breakfast, she would sit at the table with her mother and her kukum, her grandmother, who lived with them. They would talk about her dreams. There's her kukum there, her grandma and her mom. One August day, Niska's mother said, Come, Nidanis. We must visit Mishum. When they got to Mishum's house, they found him in bed. Niska took her Mishum's hand. I'm dying, my Niska. I'm dying, he told her. Niska pulled a chair next to his bed and sat holding his hand. She wiped his forehead when he perspired, when he sweat. And when he cried out in pain, she kissed his cheek and whispered, Fei do do, ni Mishum. Fei do do, go to sleep. My grandfather, go to sleep. Just like you would say to a little baby. Niska stayed for days and days holding Mishum's hand and comforting him. The geese all rose. Oh, sorry, boys and girls. One morning, the room became very bright. Mashum opened his eyes and looked into hers for a long, long time. Kinanasko miten, ni Niska. Kinanasko miten. Thank you, my Niska. Thank you, he whispered, as his hand tumbled from hers. Niska hurried to the table and took some tobacco from Mashum's pouch. She ran to the lake and spread tobacco on the water. All of the geese on the lake turned toward her. Her goose came away from the flock. It swam right up to her and looked into her eyes. She held its gaze for the longest time, then said, "Take Mashum's spirit to our ancestors, south to the promised land." The geese all rose and flew off to the south. Niska began to slowly walk back to her house. As her goose turned in the air, landed on the shore, and followed her home. When she reached home, Niska sat down on the ground and hung her head. Her goose hopped into her lap and nestled into her chest. Niska wrapped her arms around her goose and buried her face into its soft, feathery back and cried harder than she had ever cried in her whole life. When she stopped, her goose hopped down and flew back to the lake. The door opened behind her, and she heard her mother say, "Pepetikwe, isquisis, Pepetikwe, come in, my girl, come in." It's a powerful picture there. Niska grew to be an old woman. So this is Niska here. That's Marie. Every day for the rest of her life, she visited the sick, comforted the dying, and called the geese to take their spirits home. On her last day on earth, when she was a very old woman, she walked out into the blazing sun with her cane to the lake, sat on the sand on her shore, and called once to the geese. Her goose swam away from the flock and came right up to where the water meets the sand. It looked up, and they gazed lovingly into each other's eyes for the longest time. Until old Niska, she lay her cane down on the sand, and she and her goose flew away together forever. And that's it. Goose Girl. Hey, a great connection between people and animals.